Good morning, everyone. This is my first garden tour of the year. And actually, I think possibly my first garden tour ever, if I can remember correctly. And it's pretty early in the morning, but I just wanted to just give it a quick drop in before it gets too hot and just kind of give you a little quick tour of what's going on in the garden and how everything is faring. So I want to first start with this, what I call my storm shelter bed. Late in the season, Pete tilled this garden area for me, and I laid down some compost, did a little bit of mending with some neem meal, and planted straight into it. And I have to say, I am ecstatic. I just wanted to just kind of make this my squash area, just to kind of test it out, because I know squashes are very heavy feeders, as well as start out trying the Three Sisters method for the first time. I am so thrilled with this bed right now. Everything's very prolific, especially the snow white spaghetti squash. And right there, as you can tell, I've got a spaghetti squash right here in the garden, which has been very, very prolific for me. Over here, which hasn't been very prolific here, is a butternut squash. Actually, it's a honey nut squash. But I have to say, considering how much squash I have in this bed, I've found a few squash bugs that I've, killed, smashed, as you've seen in previous videos, have dropped some in some soapy water. But I have to say that I have not had the issues with squash this year being in this area that I've had in previous years, being in the trellis in the main garden area. I'm thinking it's because it's such a new area. They haven't quite found it yet, so we'll see. But I think next season I am going to try my hand at doing, first of all, better organizing this bed, but also just some watermelon, big melons that I haven't done before, and perhaps maybe even pumpkins. Now this area right here is also new, put in the same time I put in the storm shelter bed. And I just wanted to kind of expand the garden with some container pots. And I put in 2 tomatoes here, but they're not very successful, as you can tell. I always have a problem with the larger tomato varieties. Like this is a beefsteak here, and this over here is a San Marzano, which I normally have okay success with. But I think near the house, they're getting too much sun. There isn't enough shade for this plant here. And as far as this bed here, over here, I did have a paste tomato here. I think I also had a aroma tomato over here in this bed, or in this pot. But I'm thinking because of the heating vent from our dryer, it was too much for the plant to handle, because also the cucumbers here did not do well either. So I'm probably gonna remove this pot here next season and just make it these 2 pots here in this area away from the vent, so that won't be an issue. Now, in my previous video where I was doing a fertilizer test with the yeast fertilizer, I have to say that this right here, this leaf here on the San Marzano was diseased and was dying. You can kind of see right here, you can kind of see right here, this leaf is a little bit diseased, but this whole entire leaf was that way, and it looks like it's bouncing back. As well as this cucumber plant here. All these leaves were really, really yellow. They're still kind of getting crispy, but I have all these new leaves right here. I've got some new growth down here that are coming in. So, I mean, look at this. This right here, some new leaves. I mean, they're green. And this is since I did the yeast fertilizer. And it's been probably about 5 days since I did the yeast fertilizer. All this right here new growth that I didn't have before. These are still dying off. Here, new growth. So I'm very, very pleased. So far, it looks like the yeast is doing what it claims to do. I mean, it seems like I've got a lot more green growth. I mean, like all this right here, that's all new vines coming in, all new. And now moving over here to this cinder block bed over here, as well as this brown container pot that I've had here too as well. I've got some bunching onions in this pot, and I'm not sure if you can remember from the previous video, this was a tiny little pathetic of a thing of a Genovese basil, and look how much has grown in 5 days from using the yeast. This squash plant here, I'm not sure what it is. It may either be an 8-ball, sorry, it might be an 8-ball squash, which I think I'm gonna start growing more of those in honor of 8-ball. But anyways, I'm checking the underneath of the plants just to make sure I don't have any eggs under here. And it's looking pretty healthy. I'm not dealing with a lot of squash bugs this season, which I'm very, very ecstatic about, because this is the first time in probably 2 seasons that I haven't dealt with an infinite amount of squash bugs. But in this cinder block bed, over here, I have chives. 3 varieties of chives, and these have to be cleaned out. Just FYI, I was going to clean out and just do a really good cleaning and pruning in the garden area before this garden tour. But I just thought, you know what? Keep it transparent, keep it real. This is what it is right now, so don't judge. This will be cleaned up. I will get off some of the dead leaves and everything, but the garden as it is right now, I want you to see it in all its realness. So back to the chives. This right here is garlic chives. I also have Chinese chives right over here. And then this little area right here is just regular common chives. It's doing pretty well. I'm actually going to be moving some of these chives into different beds. And as they get bigger and bigger, they're very easy to transplant. So I'm thinking of just moving them all around areas in the garden, just because alliums, any plants in the allium family, help to deter pests, because pests don't normally like the smell of onions or anything in the allium family. So it works as a very good pest deterrent. So I'm thinking that this season I will move these chives to separate areas around the garden, as well as add more plantings of new chives. So right here I have Malabar spinach. This is something that I've had to plant several times, because in the beginning they were just getting eaten and devastated by grasshoppers and roly-polies, but now they're starting to take off more. So I have this planted here, as well as different areas in the garden, because I was trying to find the best spot that wouldn't get eaten by roly-polies. And every spot that I replanted for the 3rd time has all taken off. So I'm going to have lots of Malabar spinach, which I have no problem with. It's good stuff. Back over here, I don't know if you can see that very well, but that I dropped some seeds there and thought I'd let them go. But I believe those are zinnias. They're a little close and tight in this area here, but I'm hoping that they take off. If not, no worries. It is what it is. And that's kind of the approach I'm taking with the garden this season. I'm trying a lot of new things. I'm doing a more of a, I don't want to say chaotic, but more of hands-off, less organized, less control in the garden. I'm going to let nature do what nature does, because seeds want to grow. You just give them water, good soil, and love, and they will grow. I've just dropped seeds here and there in certain areas and see what it does. What survives, survives. What doesn't, doesn't. And it's a learning curve. So I'm having a little more fun in the garden. It's less organized, less constrained, and I'm having a lot more fun with it. So I would recommend that for sure. But this, I believe, is either a Rapicante or an Armenian. I lost the tag when I transplanted it, so I'm not sure. But looking at the leaves, it's either an Armenian or a Rapicante. But we'll see once it starts developing fruit. But this has really, really taken off since I did the yeast fertilizer, again, about 5 days ago. I mean, it's grown several inches. I probably should have measured this, but the leaves are greener. It just looks a lot healthier, stronger stalk and vine. So I'm anxious to see what this is. And right next to here in the front in this square is, I had an extra parsley when I was doing my parsley transplant. So I just stuck this here, right here. It's not my healthiest or my best parsley plant, but I still harvested and it's still good. Now, one thing I will say that I did notice with the yeast fertilizer is that it can also be used as a foliar spray, but it's good. But I did notice, and I think it's because of the sugar, but I did notice it left like a film on top of the leaves. And when I touched the leaves, they felt a little sticky, which I'm not too happy about. I mean, they haven't damaged the leaves in any way, but I don't like the little sheen and the film that I see on top of the leaves, or how it feels a little bit sticky. So that's just something for me to think about and to consider in the future. Over here is what's called, I think it's a mother stallard pole or something. It's a pole bean that I thought was dead due to roly-polies and I think some slugs, but it looks like it has some new germination and they are starting to take off as well, which I'm very, very pleased about. They have gotten taller and greener since I did the yeast fertilizer, so I'm happy about that. Over here, this is definitely a rapicante, and these leaf patterns are what I saw in the other one, so that's why I'm thinking it's a rapicante over there. But I do notice that these leaves here, they're softer, so I'm not sure if that's a factor in the species. That's why I'm thinking that this one over here might possibly be an Armenian cucumber. We'll see. I am having a little bit of speckling on the leaves, but overall I am getting new growth, so I'm happy about that. And right here, I'm not sure if you can see very well, but there's a little shine on these leaves, and that's what I was talking about with the yeast fertilizer. That just leaves a film, and like I said, I'm thinking it's the sugar. I don't know, but that I'm not too pleased about. But this right here is a red curry. This was very, very small before the yeast fertilizer, and like I said, in about 5 days it has gotten greener. It's starting to grow, whereas before it seemed like it was stunted and wasn't even getting any growth on, but now new growth. So, and it's gotten taller. It's gotten a lot taller, so I'm very, very happy about that. And also this week I had planted some more cucumber over here. I think right here in this area, I put in a muncher, Parisian muncher, which is a small cucumber. And over here, this is another cucumber plant. This, I am not sure what it is. There is spotting on the leaves, so it's still not 100%. It has put on some growth. It's obviously getting a new leaf. It continues to get greener, so we'll see that. And I just have that sticky feeling on my fingers, which I don't like. Over here, oh, it's starting to germinate. Oh, my baby. Oh, look at this right here. Hello. Hello, little baby. This right here is, I believe, a silver slicer. Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. This right here is a Parisian muncher that's already germinated. And where I thought over here, where I put the muncher, this is where the silver slicer is. It hasn't germinated yet. I should be better at putting in tags, but I'm not always that good at it. I tend to sometimes just take pictures with the seed packet next to where I planted, but I still don't always know where I plant things. And here is another cucumber plant. I am not sure what it is. Again, the tag was lost when I transplanted this one. I can just tell by the leaves it is a cucumber. So we'll see. But this again has gained in height and stature. The leaves have gotten greener. And I'm pleased. This right here, don't judge. this needs some help. These were in a bed by themselves, in a raised bed, but I was having issues with pill bugs and slugs eating my strawberries. So this season, I moved them all to this green stock, and they're surviving. They've got new foliage on, and as you can tell, I'm getting runners on these. And unfortunately, when they have runners coming on, they don't put on fruit. I have one right here, little tiny one. But I'm choosing to have them create runners so I can proliferate the strawberries and fill up the rest of the empty spots in this green stalk. So this whole entire green stalk I'm going to make into just a strawberry tower. So while it's putting energy into the runners, it is not creating any strawberries, which I'm not completely happy about. But again, I'd rather have more strawberry plants in the future. Now across from the strawberry tower here, in this 8x3 bed, I have a bitter melon coming on. It's taking really good hold in this heat. When everything else was struggling, this is the one thing that just is thriving. I've actually already have, and I don't know if you can see or not, but right here is my very first bitter melon coming on. And this will be a white bitter melon. And I like the white just because it's pretty. I like pretty things in the garden. But right here is also another flower. And bitter melon is definitely an acquired taste. There's ways you can prepare it so it's not as bitter. But even with that, I'm okay with the bitterness because the health benefits are so good. I'm willing to tolerate the bitterness. And over here, I have a Watham butternut squash. And this has grown so much since the yeast fertilizer. I mean, it has probably grown 5 inches. The vine itself has probably grown possibly like 5 inches, 6 inches since I put the yeast fertilizer on here days ago. But I'm loving it. I've always had squash vine borers and squash bug issues with growing butternut. So I've never had success with butternut, but I am very hopeful this season. So God willing, I will have some this season. And as we come over here, I have zinnias. Zinnias always do very, very well for me. Unfortunately, these year have been attacked by a lot of grasshoppers. So, but they're still surviving. They're pretty strong. And I need to, it looks like, I need to deadhead this one right here so that I can get some more sprouts, because this one looks like it's dying off. And over here, this is just sad, very, very sad. I don't know if you can tell, but this is my red noodle beans. Look at these leaves. Even though they look horrible, they're still producing noodle beans. I harvest several beans on this plant probably every 2 to 3 days. So they're still producing a lot, why I'm not too worried about it, why I haven't bothered to take it out. Because they just continue to produce flowers and beans. So I am not unhappy about it. It is what it is. As long as they're producing, I'm going to keep it here. I also have these 3 right here growing. And then I have a 4th one right here. So, I mean, it is what it is. So even if these die out, I have more coming behind it. And here's another planting of Malabar spinach. These were also being eaten. I did several seeds here. These are the ones that have survived the pill bugs, so I'm happy about that. So like I said, I have a few areas in the garden where I do have the Malabar spinach, so I will not be short of Malabar spinach this season. And right here next to the red noodle beans, I have Thai noodle beans. I love noodle beans. I love Asian food. So, but I have more here coming in, some more succession planting. This one is not as healthy as I would like it either, but it's doing a lot better than the red noodle beans. And these are also producing quite a bit. And I do like the texture of these noodle beans a little bit better than the other ones, but I love them both. But these are also doing pretty well, so I'm not hating them. And here I just have a bunch of peppers. I'm not gonna go through every variety, but I do have some serranos, I do have some paprikas, jalapenos, shishitos, and right behind here, this little tiny plant here is a shishito, and it's kind of scrawny one because I think it's a little bit too much in shade, and that's because it almost died in its seed starting pot. And I just put it out here to see how it would do. But it also had another one growing very close to it when I transplanted it, and I had planted both at the same time so I wouldn't disturb the roots as much, but to see which one would take off and then thin it out later. The other one wasn't as bushy as this one, so I recently, when I was doing the fertilizing with the yeast fertilizer, I thinned it out, and so I'm hoping that once that this really takes in more nutrients, that it'll take off and catch up with the rest of them. And I planted all these peppers pretty close together. They're all gotten very, very big and very bushy, but because they're all so close together, they are supporting one another, so I actually don't have these peppers over here staked, and they're doing pretty well. They're probably about hip tall to me right now, so I'm very, very happy with this. And I think I saw a grasshopper. I don't have my soapy water with me. Oh well. And this right here, some bachelor buttons that obviously have died are going to seed. I'm gonna let some of the seeds drop. I'm also gonna seed save and spread out some of the seeds throughout the whole garden. I just think bachelor buttons are very, very pretty. I think they're a little underrated. Yeah, the foliage isn't the most ornamental, but the blossoms I just love. And these are just all different varieties, different colors of bachelor buttons: red, purple, white, blue. So I'm gonna let those go to seed so I can collect the seeds. I also have another one in this bed over here. Okay, I had to switch over to the Osmo because, again, I don't know why I'm having troubles with my Canon M50. Just doesn't want to focus quickly. So, as I was saying, these also are bachelor buttons. These are mostly the red and white ones, which I really, really love. And again, I'm letting these go to seed so that I can save seeds from here and drop some more seeds in the garden for the season. Now, in the same bed here, this right here is a, I believe, Okinawa pink okra. I planted this because I was having issues in the other bed. You can never have too much okra, so I'm not hating that at all. But next here to the okra, right over here, I have a little, I think it's a Vulcan Swiss chard, and it looks like I may have another one right there. I'm not sure if you can see that yet or not. But I dropped some seeds here, and let's see what happens with those. But I love Swiss chard, so I think that's a red Vulcan Swiss chard. And over here, I'm not sure if you remember from the previous or seen the previous video, but this is my Genovese basil that was so puny with a lot of leaves that were yellow. But as you can see, they're taking off. And I have a little bachelor bud mixed up in there. But they're taking off pretty well. New growth, more green leaves. So I have to say, I am not hating this yeast fertilizer whatsoever. And over here, I have some, I think it's saline or sea line burgundy bush beans. And I do have some bush beans coming in. They're not looking the healthiest, though they've grown thicker and more lush since I used the yeast fertilizer. Yep, see, here's, if I can pull, yep, here it is. I have a bean coming in here as well. So I am happy about that. These are so good. I grew this last year as well, but I love the flavor of these beans. They do turn green once you cook them, but at least while they're in the garden, they're beautiful purple. Over here, I have what's called bombo beans. I can't pronounce that very well. It's an African bean. And this is my second season of trying to grow these. Last season, they didn't even grow this much. They were doing very, very well. And all of a sudden, they're all succumbing, I guess, to the heat. Even though I was under the impression that they were heat tolerant, apparently not. So I do have more over here that I sowed. Hopefully those will be healthier since I started those off with the yeast fertilizer. And right between these two bean plants here, I have another okra here. This is an African okra. I forget what it's called. I don't know, I forget what it's called. I'll put a name on the screen here, but this is okra from the motherland. I had it last year. I love it. Down here in the south, you can never have too much okra. So I have, I believe 5 varieties of okra growing this season. But next to the bitter melon in this bed here, I have what I like to call container row. And I just have a bunch of container pots that are 10 gallon, 20 gallon, and down here towards the end, I have a couple of raised beds, all smart pots. But starting from this end here, this is an acorn squash that is doing a lot better since I did the yeast fertilizer. It's gotten a lot bigger, a lot more green and lush. It's starting to actually grow and catch up with this one here, which is my zucchini squash, which always does very well. The Fort Hook zucchini, this always does very well for me every year. As you can see here, it's got a lot of flowers and stuff about to come on. And then over here, I'm not sure what this zucchini is. This one was a lot further behind the Fort Hook, but it's starting to catch up, as well as this yellow scallop. So again, I contribute that to the fertilizer, and they're doing a lot better, more green, new growth. And as we move down here, I have a rosemary plant. This is its 3rd season in this pot. Very prolific. I keep cutting it back. In fact, the season earlier, I cut a whole bunch back and used it as a rosemary tincture, which I love. And then down here is my 2nd year attempting to grow turmeric. This is the best year I've had. Last season, they didn't even get a fraction of the size. They died off before they got really established. So I'm very, very happy with this. They are getting a little singed with the sun, unfortunately, but I do have a lot of big trees around here that do help keep it shaded most parts of the day, but it's still not enough. We are still planning on doing a shade cloth this season as soon as time allows. Hopefully, even if it's late in the season, it's better than nothing. We'll be ready for next season. And next to it, of course, is my ginger, and I have never had success with ginger. They always seem to rot and die in the pots. But these were actually organic ginger that I purchased from Sprouts grocer, and I had some starting to get really highly developed eyes on them. So I threw them in this pot to see how they do, and I can say I am very, very happy with how well they are doing. And next to that is my Get Stuffed tomato. Oh, before I show you that, I'm not sure if I showed you this or remembered this from the previous video with the fertilizer, but here is, I believe this might be Thai basil. I think they're Thai basil, but those were puny and yellow. They're starting to take off. And this Get Stuffed, I still haven't pruned the leaves, and I've noticed when I prune leaves in the past, they seem to spread the disease more quickly, but I haven't pruned this plant and they're just turning crispy and dying off, but the rest of the plant isn't getting diseased. It's actually doing very, very well and still growing very, very tall. I mean, it's probably about 7.5 feet tall, 7.5 feet tall. Let me see if I can. There we go. I mean, so it's gotten, this is the height right here. I mean, it's pretty tall, and I'm getting more fruit up there. It's very lush and foliage are very moist. So I know they're doing well. So I think once these leaves here at the bottom, as they get crispy and really, really dry, I'm going to cut these off so that they don't shock the plant. Like I said, when I prune plants, they seem to spread the disease more, and they go into a state of shock for a period of time before they start really doing well. So I'm trying not to prune too much this season as much as possible. But obviously, I need to stake this up. And across from here is another butternut squash, besides the ones that I planted this year in the storm shelter bed. But this has grown, I would say, a good foot, if not more, since I used the used fertilizer. It's green, it's healthy. I've got it in this 20-gallon pot. And in this pot, I also planted some bunching onions in here. I've got some carrot seeds that I've had for about a year or so. Little tiny baby carrots right here coming up. But I threw a bunch of seeds in here, onions as well as carrots, just because the carrot seeds were getting old. I know, like onions, carrot seeds can lose their viability after so many years. So I just thought I'd throw both the onions and the carrot seeds in here to see how they did. And there's some growth. And then over here, I have my beet bed, which is in the shade. I have different types of beets in here. I also have some green. Don't hate, I can't pronounce this name. But I have this also growing in here. That didn't seem to take off, except for maybe this little tiny plant right there. That one is kind of taken off a little bit. But the rest of it in here are beets. I have albino, I have the bull's blood, the chioggia, can't pronounce it, but the red and white striped beets I also have in here too as well. They all didn't germinate, but I may throw some more in this area right here, just kind of fill it up. But behind this here, I have this fig tree. This one obviously is starting to put on a little bit of fruit. But this plant here was really hard getting started. It was my first fig tree. I bought it in the second season. So it's about going on its third year. And after the first winter, it all died back to it was just a stick. And I didn't know much about figs, so I thought that it was dead. But I also read that if the branches are still pliable, they're still bendable without snapping, it's still alive. So I pruned it back, and they've been going dormant and budding every year for the last 2 years. So it's getting bigger, and I'm going to go ahead and keep this. This is a 20-gallon pot. I'm probably going to keep it in here just to keep the size controlled and maintained. But this is doing very, very well. I do have another fig tree over here. This one is only a year old. It is smaller than the other one, obviously, but it's a little bit bushier. And I have a dead leaf here I just want to get rid of. And if the leaves fall off and snap off easily, I'll pull them off. If they're a little hard and show resistance, I'll leave them alone. But I just recently transplanted these figs from 5-gallon pots into these 20-gallon pots, and they have taken off since. So they've gotten a lot bigger. And next to this here is another squash plant. I'm thinking it's a Ford Hook zucchini. It might be a golden zucchini. I'm not quite sure. But we'll find out once it starts to fruit. But this has been doing very, very well. And it's already starting to put on some flowers. And over here behind this is the radish bed. And radish is very low maintenance. It is kind of hot in the season, so it will be a little bit spicy. But I don't mind spicy radishes. But they don't require a lot of maintenance. So hopefully I'll be able to harvest these in a couple more weeks. And here, oh, actually this is a golden squash. And this is doing very, very well. I have so many new leaves coming in here as well. I love golden squash. And right here in front of container row, I have this right here is a bed that I had. Here we go. This bed right here, I just kind of added to the side of next to this 2x4 bed, just to have a little garden area. My initial plan was just to have flowers coming up over here to bring in the pollinators near the main bed. But I had to get more carrot seeds that needed to be planted before the germination rate died. And as you can tell, I just have a lot of little carrots coming through here, and some onions too as well. So, and this right here, oh my lord, this is my collards that I have to pull out. This is something else that I was going to clean up for the garden tour, but I wanted to show you how real the struggle is. I have harlequin bugs. I mean, look at all that. They're just decimating my collards, so these are I have to pull out completely. But this is my snapdragons. This is the second season. I planted these last summer. I thought they were going to die back, but they came back this summer as well. Didn't realize they were perennial. They are struggling a little bit right now. I'm going to prune these back for sure, pretty low, and all the dead leaves, and see how they come back. I was hoping that these would actually be able, oh, actually, you know what? I take that back. I was having a hard time finding seeds, but I don't think they were just mature yet. But yes, I have a lot of hard seeds in here, so I will be seed saving as well. And here I have on this trellis here a yellow pear tomato that was a teeny tiny little transplant that just wasn't doing well, but it's taken off in this area, growing over this trellis pretty well. I'm letting all the suckers develop for more fruit and a bushier plant. I'm trying to do less, like I said, less pruning this year. And I normally in the past have always taken off the suckers to one vine. But even though I may get smaller fruit, I like abundance. So I'm gonna let these just continue to sucker and grow. But again, they're a little diseased, but they're not spreading that fast. Again, the top, like the get stuffed tomato, is very healthy on top. So what I also may do, once it kind of cools off a little bit more, is spray down the plants with aspirin. In the beginning of the season, I was deterring disease a lot when I was spraying with aspirin. And that is a trick that I learned from, I believe it was the Rustic Garden or Rustic Gardener. I'm so bad with YouTube names, bear with me. But he suggested that, and yeah, it works. It helps to keep the plant's immune system very strong. So yes, I definitely will be spraying these down again with some aspirin. In the beginning here, we're going down the row again. Next to the container row over here, we also have this 2x2 bed where I have some basil growing, which is going to seed, and I have to harvest this. But this is an African basil called, I believe it's a coco mesa. Very good, high nutrient dense basil, very prolific in the heat. In the summer heat, this is the one thing that always seems to last. Even when it goes to seed, it doesn't get as bitter as you would think it does, so it's still very delicious. I also have some Anaheim peppers. This is, I believe, oh gosh, what does it say here? A Niagara. This is Niagara eggplant. And this is one that's a little bit small because I did have two plants planted together, so they were fighting for nutrients. I've since then cut off the other plant, and this one has started to take off and is getting more leaves because it's getting more nutrients. These little plants here, I believe, I threw some seeds here a while ago. I don't remember what they were, but they look like they might be, I want to say Mexican sunflowers. We'll see when they get bigger, but I think I might throw some Mexican sunflowers in here. They're struggling. We'll see what happens. They're still very, very tiny. And that's one thing of this season. Sunflowers usually are abundant in my garden. This year, not so much. And then I have another eggplant here. This is another, it's called Nagaota. I'll put the name on the screen, but this one, again, had another one that was planted with it that was causing it to compete for nutrients. And I since then thinned it out, and it's doing better. And here's my cosmos. It's trying to go to seed. I keep deadheading them, and they're coming back more and more, but I need to deadhead them more to keep them going strong. But the stock is strong. It's good. And these are just so pretty when they're in full bloom. And next to here, I have my 2x8 bed. In here, I have parsley. Hold on, it's getting a little bright out here. But here, I've got some parsley. I have an eggplant here, one of the varieties. This right here is, oh gosh, let's see here. This is an burgundy okra. I love my colored okras. I love anything burgundy and purple. This right here is a Alabama red, which they're both getting pretty big. In between here, I have a Buena Mulata purple cayenne type pepper. I love this, and I got it because of the purple color. I love purple, but it's a great flavor. It can get pretty spicy, but I love the flavor. I love the purple flowers. I mean, who can hate that? So I got a Buena Mulata here. These are some beans in here that I stuck in here. I'm not sure what variety they were. I had some bean seeds that I just tossed in here, but I think they're being too shaded. And I also think grasshoppers are eating them. Over here is my dill that has gone to seed. So I need to save these seeds soon before they all drop and reseed next season. And then I have over here next to it, I have a cream paste tomato, which I love. It's a coming to disease, but it's still pushing through. It's still putting a lot of fruit, and they are ripening. But these tomatoes are so delicious. And I haven't actually preserved any into a sauce yet, but I would love to see a white cream sauce out of these paste tomatoes, which I think I'll probably do this season, since I do have a lot also on the kitchen counter. So I may be making some white paste tomato sauce. And over here is the cleansing spineless. It is getting chomped on a lot, and grasshoppers just seem to love my okra. So the leaves get really chomped on. Harvested quite a few okra from here. And I have some more shishito right here, which, oh, here's one that's turning red. These are doing very well now that pods are small and pale. I need to maybe fertilize. I don't know. I did put some yeast fertilizer on here, but they didn't seem to take off very well, but we'll see. I think they might be a little too shaded. But yeah, some more peppers. These are a paprika variety, I believe. Some more coco mesa on this end. Can never have too much of coco mesa. It's so nutrient dense and delicious. And in this small purple raised bed, I have all these purslane, which I love. Oh, talk about nutrient dense, high in omegas, more nutrients, a bit of carotene, I believe, than carrots. But they're can be very invasive, but easy to grow. They're little tiny seeds, but the stem, the flowers, the petals are all edible. I have some dwarf cosmos in here. I just kind of just threw seeds in this bed. I have some dwarf cosmos. I should have some kale. Yep, I have some kale coming in right here, which are getting a little smothered by the purslane, which I think I may have to cut back. I also have some spinach in here somewhere. It's New England spinach or New Zealand spinach, which I don't, yep, here it is right here, being shaded out and smothered by the purslane. I need to take care of those. But yeah, I have some dwarf cosmos coming in here, which I need to prune back to make it shorter and bushier. And here is some more kale. And these two beds here are empty right now. This one I recently amended and mulched. This one needs to be amended and mulched. I'm not sure I'm going to put into these two beds. Since these two are covered by shade for part of the day by this massive tree right here, I may go ahead and plant the romaine lettuce in these beds and see how they do. This is my 4x8 bed, and in here I just recently planted all here in this dead area. Right here I planted a bunch of pink-eyed cowpeas, some black-eyed peas in this area. In the center of the bed I planted some more flowers and sunflowers. And as we come to the front of the bed here, these are all cowpeas. and they're doing so well. I mean, I'm getting flowers on them now. They're green, they're healthy, they're lush, pretty much pest free. Here's another Buena Mulata, and this right here, I believe it's also Genovese basil. This was pretty much non-existent, but it's doing well since they used fertilizer. More cowpeas as we move over here. These are French fillets, obviously struggling. This one is completely dead. Yeah, we'll see how they do. I planted some more in here recently, so we'll see how that goes. As well as this right here, more French fillets. This right here, Golden Rush, or Gold Rush. Got a few beans coming up there. This all right here is mostly beans at the base of these tomatoes. These are Roma tomatoes, or not Roma tomatoes, but they are paste tomatoes, and they're called Bush Roma Supremo, and they're producing. So I'm going to try to see if I can save these by spraying aspirin on these two as well, and see if I can bring them back. But we'll see. Otherwise, I may have to pull these two tomato plants. Behind this tomato plant here, we have another Get Stuck tomato, and I did have two in here. They didn't do well together, so I recently thinned them out, and this one is starting to get a little healthier. And at the base here, I have some Scarlet Runner beans. I have planted these several times this season. They were getting eaten by pale bugs and grasshoppers, but they seem to be doing better now. This right here is a borage that self-seeded, because I had borage plants in this bed that took up this whole entire back of the bed here that are reseeding. Here is a Yellow Perfection tomato. I thought it was gonna die. I stopped pruning. The plants is starting to grow. And it's even getting new suckers here, which I'm gonna let continue to grow and see what happens. And then next to here, I have a cucumber. I think this is a green finger cucumber. And I have this here. And this deformed cucumber shows that it's heat stressed, and it could be the water and nutrient uptake as well. But when they get deformed like that, they're still edible, but they're stressed. And I have this one here that obviously did not get pollinated. And next to here is another pear tomato. Obviously I loved past tense pear tomatoes. They are delicious. I love the color, but I'm finding the skins to be too tough. So this may be the last year I do pear tomatoes. I do have, I think, a few more seeds in the packet. I may just grow what's left of the seeds, not to waste the seeds, but once those seeds are up, I don't think I'll be growing pear tomatoes anymore. And this first bed over here, one of the first beds that we built, is 4x8. This plant right here, that is a comfrey. It's a Russian Bach 14 comfrey, so they're not invasive. I've got these all over the property in sporadic areas. My thought process in having the comfrey was to have the leaves for composting and for chop and drop, so they would put nutrients back in the bed. But this one is my best growing comfrey, and I believe it's because, one, it's in a raised bed that's highly amended, and two, it gets the most attention from me, whereas the ones on the other parameter of the property don't get as much attention from me. They come back year after year abundant, but they die back quickly. But this one just continues to go like gangbusters. And over here, I have mint. I have a couple of varieties of mint. These were first started from a grocery store mint plant, and then I bought some seeds and threw them in here. I'm just kind of deadheading them so the seeds don't bother to spread. And this is a 10-gallon pot, but I'm thinking probably either this season I will put this in a 20-gallon pot and put more varieties of mint into it. But I want to keep the mints contained in a smart pot so that they don't become invasive in the garden. And what I do with these smart pots is I put stands. I'm not sure if you can tell, but like right here, I have a stand that I put under here the plants so that air gets, let me see, there we go, so that air gets circulated underneath the plants, because I learned the hard way that if these smart pots are in contact with the ground, the roots will grow through the smart pot and root into the ground, which is what happened to my hibiscus plant that I had in the pot. And in this season, when I was trying to remove it and move the pot, I found out that it roots in the ground. So I try to put these little stands under here, just allow airflow so the roots get air pruned and they don't go and root into the ground. Right here is another sucker that I did from this Get Stuffed tomato. And again, I'm letting the suckers go on here, and they've got a lot of flowers. I'm not sure if you can tell. It's a little bright. They've got a lot of flowers coming up on here. No flower drop. I thought I saw a fruit. But yeah, so this one is doing a lot better. This is a 20-gallon pot, or actually I believe, no, this is a 10-gallon pot. But it's doing quite well, and as you can see, I have these stakes on the outside as well, but this right here is a lot more sturdy than the other ones that I have where I put the stakes inside the pot. So these are a lot more supportive for the tomatoes. And the rest of this bed here, I had some petunias in the corner of this bed here that just didn't take, they dried out. And that's one thing I need to be very mindful of, is the corners of these beds. Since they're on the edge, they tend to dry out in the corners a lot faster, so I got to keep the corners a lot more watered and saturated. But this right here, I am not sure. I think these are some seeds that I got from the Asian market, and I think they're long finger cucumbers, or long cucumbers, similar to an English cucumber, but they're from the Asian market. So that's what I've got growing here. Here's a Kajari melon. It's slow. I mean, I've gotten some height on it since I've done the yeast fertilizer, but it's just taken a while to grow. I'm just not sure why it's struggling so much. So we'll see. But I had two here. One didn't make it, succumb to grasshoppers, but this one I'm hoping takes off. And another pear tomato here. This one I did have to tie up yesterday because it just totally had fallen over. But as you can tell, this is probably a 6.5 foot, 7 foot trellis, and this is already starting to go over the top. And again, I'm not pruning. Once the dead leaves die and crisp up completely, I will take them off so I don't stress out or shock the plant. And that way too, it's calloused, so once it's cut off, it doesn't spread more disease into the plant. So we'll see. But as you can see, I have a lot of fruit on here. A lot of fruit. I mean, look at all that. A lot of fruit. These are going to be so delicious. A lot of fruit. Nasturtium here in the corner of the bed that needs to be pulled out. Another Get Stuffed tomato. And I have a lot of Get Stuffed tomatoes because they're pretty large tomatoes compared to what I'm able to grow normally, because I like beefsteaks, but I can't grow beefsteaks. But I do have a lot of Get Stuffed because they're so delicious. They're great for stuffing. They're great for raw eating. I like them. And I do have some pole beans here. I'm not sure what this is called here. Blauhild. I am not sure, but these were constantly getting eaten by grasshoppers, as you can tell this one was. Now I was going to pull this one out, but as you can tell, it looks like it's got new growth going on, so I'm cheering this little puppy on. Grow, baby, grow. We'll see. But I have another one over here, obviously, right there. And this right here, I've got two plants growing here. So these are transplants that were grown together, and I need to separate these probably. But they're both growing fruit. That's why I haven't separated them yet. So we'll see. But they're both struggling. I just may have to feed this more fertilizer so they can both be sustained and have the nutrients they need. This is a white borage that is succumbing to a lot of grasshoppers. Grasshoppers love my borage. They decimate it, but I've noticed that the white ones get the brunt of the damage, whereas the blue ones tend to withstand it and survive better than the white. And even though I like the white, I may not grow these again. Once the seed packets are done, I may just stick to the blue. Because even when they do bloom, they're not as show-stopping and as vibrant as the blue. So I may not be growing white anymore. And over here, I have the birdhouse melon, or actually birdhouse gourd. I just love this foliage. They feel like silk. Oh my gosh, they're so soft. But I have two growing here. This one was very, very, very small before the yeast fertilizer. Looks like it's doing very well. I could rub these leaves all day. They are like silk. They're so soft. And then over here, these are my first year of growing cucamelons. And this one needs to get up here. But yeah, these are supposed to be very prolific, supposed to be very good in the heat. And this took a very long time to get started. But once it started, especially this first one here, it is just growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, healthy leaves. It's not suffering the heat. Mind you, it is in a slightly dappled shade area, but yeah, I'm happy so far. I cannot wait until it starts producing the cucamelons. This right here is a melon that I tried from, it's a Rancho Mexican market, but it's the Cobacha. And I actually liked this melon. So I saved the seeds from that melon and I planted them just to see if they would grow. Free seeds besides buying the fruit itself. But I mean, I did have some yellowing leaves, but we've had this new growth and more coming in, a little more greening of the leaves since I used yeast fertilizer on here. And this is a marigold that I'm gonna have to top off soon. I'm gonna let it get probably another inch or so before I top it off so it gets bushier. I did plant several marigolds in this area. This is the only one that took. I don't know why. But this right here too, this bed, let me pull back here a little bit. This bed right here, little thin bed, is next to the greenhouse. I tilled this up and amended it with some compost and fertilizer just to be able to have this trellis here on this side and grow some melons in the shade. This is the second year, so we'll see. Over here, I have more Malabar spinach, and these are doing a lot better than they were before. So I planted actually in this area twice. This is the second planting, and they're taking off. So I cannot wait until I get some Malabar spinach. I will take some tie tape and stakes and put them here so they have something to grow up before they reach the base of the trellis. Kind of like what I have going on here. And this right here are zinnias. And this one right here I pinched off, but it looks like the tips of the new growth are dying back, so we'll see. This was very hard clay soil because it had never been planted in before, so I just like tilled it and let's put in some compost. Not very deep, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it'll help to loosen up the soil and get more lush. This right here are loofah plants. This is my second year growing it. Last year it was so prolific and took over half of this trellis. This one here was planted the same time as this, but this one is just struggling. I don't know what it is about this certain spot, but this one here, even if this is the only one that takes off, I'm good with it because it'll take up most of the trellis, and I'm good with that. But across from here, from the trellis over here, I actually sowed some more sweet corn since the ones in the storm shelter bed succumbed to the squash. I'm hoping these will take off too as well. These I planted a little bit later. Succession planted a little bit, so we'll see. That right there is a sunflower that's finally taken off since I used the yeast fertilizer. That's another sunflower that's finally taken off too as well. And over here, I have this little tiny baby, whoops, let me see, this little baby sunflower that just did not do very well in the beginning, but is doing much better now. And these are actually, what did I plant here? I forget. I think these were also, yes, these are, I think I planted scarlet runner beans. And right here, these are doing so much better. Again, I think because they're a little more in the shade from these trees around the property. And here's another borage. This is the white flower borage. No flowers. I mean, it is succumbing to grasshoppers, but not as much as the other one. But these are not coming up with flowers. And I see right here an assassin bug. Look at that beauty. Oh my gosh, he's a biggin. These things used to gross me out in the beginning, but I appreciate them now. I love them, knowing what they do. And behind this loofah, I have, this is the sage's 3rd year. I put it into this pot because I was told to use a very deep, big pot. But honestly, I don't need a sage plant this big. I don't harvest enough sage on here to justify this plant. A lot of it died back over the winter. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is cut off a few young stems and propagate this and put it into a smaller pot. Probably a 10 or 20 gallon, actually not 20, excuse me, a 5 or 10 gallon pot. Just enough for consumption by me and Pete. This pot here has seen better days. This is actually nettles that I started by seed. And obviously, this pot needs to be topped off with more soil. But I'm going to go ahead and probably top it off this week with more soil and throw in some more nettle seeds so it becomes bushier. And in case you don't know, nettle is very invasive. So I keep it contained in this pot. And even though it's in a plastic pot, I may eventually move it into a smart pot and elevate it so it doesn't root. But I like the nettles because I like to use it as chop and drop in the garden. And I also like to make it as a tea for medicinal purposes. But I prune back the flowers faithfully so that it doesn't have any chance of reseeding and getting all over the property, because once it's in, you can forget about getting it out. So that is the garden tour for today. Sorry for the switching up of the camera. You don't listen, do you? I don't want mulch over there. I don't need it. There's no weeds growing up there. Okay, so we are finally done. Pea Pie is joining me today. This had started out as a garden tour, but turned into a chore day. So we've been out here for what, 4 hours?
Yeah, 3.5.
3.5, 4 hours, yeah. Well, I've been out here for 4 hours because I started, well, actually longer since I started the garden tour, but.
Yeah, about 9:30 to, it's 1:07 right now.
Yeah. So we're gonna call it a day, go in, take a shower, and have some water. Thanks for all your help today.
Not a problem. All you had to do is ask.
Seriously? More dad jokes?
Yep.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon and have a blessed day.